Okay, so good morning to all, and thanks to Dean Michael and Subit for giving me this chance. A little bit about myself. I'm an assistant professor in computer science department. I just completed 3.5 years. Before that, I was at Georgia Tech as a postdoc, and before that, I was in Louisiana State University. And I'm originally from one of the southernmost state in India called Kerala. And what you see there is a small picture from my hometown, which is about 15 miles away from my home. Okay, so my research, very broadly speaking, is in theoretical computer science. So theoretical computer science is a mix of computer science and mathematics. And we are in the business of mostly proving theorems. And I have been teaching few courses in computer science, mostly complexity theory, algorithms, etc. These are some core courses for PhD students. Okay, so just for the non-computer science audience, what is algorithms and what is complexity? I think we all know what algorithms are about. It is all about how we solve something efficiently. And complexity theory is exactly this. Sometimes we cannot solve few problems efficiently, right? So like no algorithms can solve some problems. So in that scenario, can we somehow give an explanation? Why is it hard? Is there something fundamentally blocking us from getting an efficient solution? So that kind of a study is called complexity theory. Just a small example. Let's take this problem called shortest path. You are given a graph and you want to go from point A to point B. This is a problem which we can solve very efficiently using algorithms. Okay, so here algorithms helps. And the second one is a problem called traveling salesperson problem. You are given a graph and your objective is to start from, many things can be modeled as graph. Your objective is to start from one point, let's say one city, and you want to visit many other cities and come back to your original place. Now, and the objective is to minimize the total distance traveled, right? And the distance is a function of how you choose to travel. Like the sequence in which travel these cities matters in the total distance. So the question is, can we somehow compute what is the best sequence? And for this problem, of course, one way is to just enumerate all possibilities. If there are n cities, there are roughly n factorial different ways we can do this. And the thing is, the best solution known for this problem is simply just try out all options. In other words, we don't really know if we can solve this problem more efficiently than just trying out all options in a brute force way. So in this scenario, the question is, why, this problem has been around for like 50 years or 100 years, and still we were not able to make any progress. So can we give some explanation why we can't go further? Okay, so that is the study of complexity theory. So that is a brief introduction about my research. And what I do more specifically is play with strings, because string data is everywhere. Like bioinformatics, we have a lot of strings, etc., etc. Very briefly about my lab, I have 4 PhD students and 2 RUs, and I have few publications. Some of them are indexed by CS ranking, and I also have a joint appointment with genomics and bioinformatics cluster. And I have also served in some of the university committees, and most of my research is supported by NSF, and some of these are pretty fundamental and not really, independent interest. Okay, so a little bit more specifics. String data is ubiquitous, and the main applications is in bioinformatics, which is obvious because genome data can be modeled as strings. And the story is something like this. We have these sequencing instruments, and it will sequence these genomes, and it will produce big string data. So the data is so huge, it's string data, so of course we need string algorithms. And since the data is huge, there comes the game of compression. Right? So compression is an important aspect, and also indexing is another aspect. So indexing essentially means, one thing is you can compress the data, but if you compress it into a black box, that is not always useful. We should be able to kind of operate on the compressed data. That is where indexing comes in place. So let me quickly say what I have done in the field of algorithms. Just one main contribution. So exact string matching is a well-known problem, and people have solved it like 50 years back, like playing with exact string matching. But in most of the real world applications, what we need is something called approximate string matching, which basically means we should be able to tolerate some errors. It's very important in bioinformatics, and we were not known any efficient methods to handle approximate string matching. Of course, we can do some brute force techniques or some easy techniques called dynamic programming, but something more efficient than that was unknown. People were following, or people were using heuristics. So what I did is I was able to come up with a kind of like a mathematical framework by which I can handle approximate string matching much more efficiently, and I can kind of prove a lot of things about it. So of course I published a bunch of papers on that. So that is about algorithms. The next part is compression and indexing. As I told, data compression is important, and there are many techniques known from many years ago. And this indexing is more important. Like just compression alone is not enough. We want to index it too. So one of the main application is in genomics or in bioinformatics, where we want to index the whole human genome. And whenever we get a short fragment of genome called reads, we kind of want to match it in the long string. Okay, so this is called genome mapping problem. There were like solutions using what is a data structure known as suffix trees, but these were like very bad in terms of space. Normal computers could not handle it long back. So people were able to come up with techniques called, there is a technique called Burrows-Wheeler transform. It's kind of mathematical. And people were able to handle these kind of things in 2000. So what is happening now is the way people model these genomes, or what you call as a reference genome or template genome, is not anymore as strings. We want to kind of model these things in the form of what you call as a graph, what you see there. So we want to match these strings to a graph. So this is kind of a new paradigm. And matching strings to a graph is a problem which is still not solved well. And I have done some work in this area. And my main work, in one word, what I can say is I was able to come up with some sort of graph classes which can be indexed very efficiently and still match these patterns with it. Okay, so that is about indexing and compression. And the last part is probably, this is my most favorite. This is called complexity theory. And it is all about the study of what we cannot do using algorithms. Very quickly, I have 3 problems just to show. The first one is shortest path. I can solve it very efficiently. The second one is called traveling salesperson, what I mentioned before. We don't know how to solve it efficiently. All we can do is just try out all possibilities. And it takes what we call as exponential amount of time. So exponential is like huge. For example, if I'm just trying to solve it just for all the US state capitals, I have 50 states, and 50 factorial is a big number which no computer can handle. So that is the second problem. The third is another problem. Let's say I give you a bunch of numbers and I want to check, are there 3 points which are collinear? Okay. So the third problem, the best solution known, takes roughly quadratic amount of time. Quadratic means if there are n points, I kind of need n square steps to solve that problem. This is about the best solutions known, and we were not able to come up with any better solution. So for the second problem, which is like really huge time, there is a big theory called NP completeness theory. I mean, this is known from 70s, 80s, etc. And what I have shown there is a picture, and just some pictures. So we have some theory called NP completeness by which we can somehow give an explanation why traveling salesman problem is hard. Okay, but when it comes to other problems which are like not as bad as exponential, but still a higher polynomial like quadratic or cubic time, we still don't have a good theory by which we can explain why these problems are hard. So in the last like 10 to 15 years, people were trying to come up with new theories or new frameworks by which we can kind of reason about why nobody was able to improve this kind of problems. And this is called fine-grained complexity. This is one of the hottest area in computer science now, in theoretical computer science, and by which people were able to solve some of the very fundamental problems. For example, like computing the edit distance between 2 strings, which is a fundamental problem which was not able to improve for last 50 years. I teach this problem in the class. Like we have something called a dynamic programming by which we can solve it very easily, but it takes a lot of time. So people were able to prove why we were not able to improve these basic algorithms. Okay, so what we have done in our lab with my students is we were able to prove this kind of lower bounds for many other fundamental problems. And one of this is called multiple sequence alignment, which is one of the standard problem in bioinformatics. Multiple sequence alignment is all about, I give you a bunch of sequences, let's say K sequences, and I somehow want to make changes, the minimum number of changes in these sequences so that I can make all of them the same. Okay, so there is a solution known, which takes a lot of time, and we were able to kind of give a mathematical reason why nobody was able to improve the solution for that problem. The solution was known from 60s and 70s. Okay, so similarly for many other problems too, I was able to give explanation. So in summary, the kind of research what I'm doing is kind of foundational. We try to solve some classical problems, and we introduce some new mathematical tools. And one thing about this kind of research is it is oblivious to technology. In the sense, we are just giving proof. So we are kind of mathematically proving why we can improve something or why we cannot improve. Okay. I just want to highlight some award one of my students got recently, and he was instrumental in proving many of these results. Am I out of time? Yeah. Okay. So my near-term goals, I just want to highlight a few things. I am closely working with the GNP cluster, and I want to submit a few more proposals, of course. So one thing I want to highlight at this point is I want to continue some research in data science and interdisciplinary research, which I'm currently doing with some of my colleagues at Georgia Tech. But with this seminar, I figured out there is a lot more opportunities here as well. So I want to explore that part. In terms of the long-term goals, try different areas, and I want to try some RU site options in the future. As a last slide, I would like to acknowledge NSF and UCF for some of my startup funds, and of course, my students and colleagues. Thank you.